Hello, I'm Ali.
And I'm her best friend, Em.
This is She Said, She Said.
Join us for our ritual Wednesday evening glass of wine as we talk about the highs and lows of life as two foreign ladies living in France.
Think of this as the group chat you actually want to be on, where we talk about all the plates we're spinning and occasionally dropping.
We'll also give you the best tips we've learned from over a decade living among the Frenchies.
C'est parti!
Hi, she's there. Emma's there.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I am tired.
Have you survived Wednesday?
I have survived Wednesday. Do you know
Just
what?
about.
Yeah,
Huh?
just about. Do you know what? 2 weeks ago, we had a lot of new listeners, so maybe we should reintroduce ourselves to anyone who's listening,
Yes.
which is really exciting.
Welcome to our new listeners. I wonder if it's because we're promising some nice facts about France. Maybe we should get those going.
Yeah.
Keep those coming, I mean.
I was like, do you want a fact about France now? You've sort of caught me off guard there.
No, I meant maybe we should keep more facts about France coming, which is the fact today. So
that is the plan.
Yes.
Yeah. But today we are going to speak about children.
Yes, not our children though. So
not our personal ones, but we do have a cool way to start the episode before we run into the topic of the episode. Do you have a show and tell? Because I don't have one. I'm sorry.
I have a really short one.
Okay.
And this kind of, we can slide right into our topic of today once I'm finished. So this show and tell is about a job that I did this week. So I have I'm a freelance journalist, so I do several different little jobs here and there. And one of them is voicing either commercial videos or audio guides.
Yeah.
And so this week I did a new audio guide for an exhibition.
Yeah.
An exhibition in Marseille.
Okay.
In this, I'd say maybe the most iconic museum of Marseille, which is the Mucem, which is just it's just on the coast. It's this really big, museum center basically
it's really
in
cool,
the center
right?
of Marseille.
Yeah.
And there is a new exhibition which is called Good Mothers, Bonne Mère. And it's about the image that we have of women being mothers from 4,000 years ago until today in the whole Mediterranean area, basically. And I can't say too much about it, but let's just say I really think it's a really, really interesting place to go and learn loads of things about, even how in Greek mythology, how at one point, for example, men were so threatened by the power that it is for women to be able to have children, that there's a lot of stories about Greek gods trying to get rid of the woman in the story of birth. It's really interesting. And so they're kind of trying to say, this is how it's been in history. And today there's millionaires talking about, I don't know, getting small armies of children and, artificial uteruses, and how, people trying to kind of imagine life without women, putting life into this world without women. So I think it's a really interesting exhibition. So I'm going to try and go see it, even though I already know quite a lot about it, but haven't actually seen the pictures. I've only talked about them. So
that sounds so interesting. How long is it staying at them? What?
I'm gonna check. I'll check that out because I don't actually know if it's already started. I don't think so because I've only done it. It's starting on 18th of March.
Can you give us a line of the voiceover in German? I'm always really excited to hear.
Yeah, probably. Oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to be honest.
Okay. Wow.
Oh,
Hot
sorry. I would have
property,
to
hot
kill you if I did.
property. Okay, cool.
So
That's a good
that's why I thought that one works well with a topic that you and I both were like last week saying, like, we have to talk about this topic. And we had so much to, I even thought, like, I think we don't even have to do the podcast. We can just read the conversation that we had on WhatsApp.
Honestly, I think
Because,
this topic has been kind of like rammed down my throat for the last 2 weeks on the radio in France, in, on all TV shows, on all social media. It's just the thing that the media is obsessed with, right?
yeah, but I think I understand why, right? So the
Yeah.
topic is France discussing fertility rates and there being a parliamentary commission that was supposed to look into why birth rates in France have been going down. And they were supposed to make suggestions about how the government could go about getting birth rates up. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I think the thing that kind of made everybody freak out and the media freak out was there were some official stats that came out that recorded more deaths happened than births for the first time since World War II. So that was like the pivotal moment that kind of sparked this committee, sparked kind of all the media interest. And I think it's quite a symbolic marker of a demographic shift. And obviously I think most people understand that a declining population, what the consequences of that are later on. Like that happened in Germany, didn't it?
Yeah, in Germany, it has been happening for a couple of decades, hasn't it? I mean, I haven't actually done that research, but in Germany, yeah, there's the discussion is very much alive about how to get birth rates up. And I mean, we'll get into this, I guess, in more detail, but from what I've seen is everything that France is suggesting now are things and politics are things that Germany has put in place and doesn't seem to work that well. So I don't know.
Yeah, they seem a bit light, don't they? Like we say, we'll probably get into it, but I think the thing that's surprising is for France is that it used to be the exception. So kind of for decades, it was the European exception. I mean, way ahead of countries like Italy, Spain, Germany. While they were all falling, France managed to keep its birth rates up. But now that's not the case anymore. And I think
Yep.
that is probably because there's such like a policy architecture in France around having kids. And we've maybe experienced that a little bit because we between us have 5 kids, so we've been through that system, and we're still actually
It
going
sounds
through
like
that
one of us
system.
had 5.
To be clear, I had 2, Ali had 3. There's
But
we're
that is
not.
a lot of kids, yeah.
It is, but I did check because kind of hearing it all the time on the radio, often on the way to work. I was thinking, am I helping the birth rate enough? And isn't that weird that it had any kind of impact on me at all? And I did a little search of what it would need to be for the birth rate to go up, and it would need to be 2.4 kids per woman. That's what it said for the birth rate to start going up. So actually, at 2 kids, I'm not even helping. It's
But
going,
you and me together are.
but we aren't together. Which is, I would love that.
Oh, true. Oh, true. But we are co-hosts of a podcast. Does that not count?
True. Yeah, that definitely counts. But I mean, I suppose to go back to why France kind of managed to keep the birth rate up for so long does have really subsidized childcare definitely compared to the UK. I'm not sure about Germany, but I know for full-time childcare,
Mm.
you pay very little compared to you would in the UK.
Yeah, same. I think it's the same in Germany. In Germany, it really depends on the region where you live in. Again, like with any other policies, is most of it is your Bundesland, like your region that can put in place for example, free childcare, as is the case in Hamburg, or get childcare costs according to your income. There's like different ways of going about it, I guess, in Germany. But yes, overall, I would say it's definitely not even just cheaper, but also it's just the system is put in place for people to go back to work. It always sounds a bit like it's going to be difficult to get your kid into a creche. And
Mm.
when you've had a child, even in France, you kind of start stressing about it a little bit. Even before probably giving birth, you're a bit like, okay, how am I going to go back to work? Like, who's going to look after my child and all of that? But I guess in the end of the day, there's the structure to be able to go back to work and then to actually do that. So I think that's the biggest difference in Germany, where there's not a lot of places where you could bring your child that's
Yeah.
under a year old, for example, into childcare.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's very rare that you could bring your child, like I don't know, 5 or 6 month old
Mm.
into a creche, or it's quite rare, I think.
Yeah. I do think in France, and I've not personally experienced childcare in the UK, but I have a lot of friends and family who have. And like you say, it's incredibly expensive and not accessible. So it's only kind of private nurseries, really. Whereas in France, there are state-run nurseries, but there's also the whole system of nounous,
Yeah,
which are like childminders, I suppose.
yeah, yeah, the
Um,
nannies.
the nanny
Mm,
mafia.
yeah.
um, and I mean, you would always find someone to look after your kid. Whether it's someone you would want to leave your kid with or not is a different question, but there's always an option, I think. And it's not, I mean, I suppose it's based on what you earn as well, which is different to the UK, I think. Here it's kind of based, if you really don't earn a lot, you probably won't pay very much at all, actually, for child.
Oh, yeah, almost nothing. Yeah,
Mhm.
friends of mine had their kids when they were students, and I think that was close to nothing.
Yeah.
Cost close to nothing to have their, I think back then, 4-month-old in full-time childcare, as in like 40 hours in creche. Mm.
I do think as well, it's not just the price of it, it's kind of the how socially accepted it is to put your kid into childcare, because I mean, we were talking about this before, weren't we? And trying to think about what the kind of acceptable age for your kid to go into childcare is and for you to go back to work.
Mm.
And I'd say the norm is around 5 months when your
Yeah,
child
I
is five
actually looked
months
this
old.
up, and in France, apparently it's a study from 2020. Most women in France go back to work when their child is 5 months old. That is like the average age. And you and I were talking about this, yeah, being a choice. So in France, you do have 16 weeks of maternal leave, which is 4 weeks before you have the child, and then 12 weeks after. And then with your third child, I think you have a bit more. I mean, I know you have more. I think you have 1 month before and 5 months after. Um, and this means during that time, you'll have almost your full salary being
Yeah,
paid
yeah,
by state. So you get almost your full salary for staying at home with your child or children. Um, Whereas when you want to stay home longer, part-time or full-time, you can ask for parental leave, and your company has to give that to you within the first 3 years of your child. They can't say no to that. But you will only get, I think you and I were saying, like, not even 400 euros a month, right? So if before, let's say you had like a quite normal salary, which would be, I don't know, around 2K or something in France, I'd say. Um, there you go with 400 a month, which if you have bills to pay and rent,
rent. Yeah.
especially if you live in a urban area, that is next to nothing. So it definitely is a question of choice, when you financially are able to stay home. But I'd say for a lot of people who earn SMIC, which is the minimum wage in France, that is not a choice they have.
No. No, I mean, you'd have to be probably in a couple where one of you goes back to work and has a salary. I mean, that's what I did twice, and that's the only reason I could stay off was because my partner had a job, and it was really tight. I mean, to stay off work because, like you said, you get less than 400 euros a month, so it's not a choice you would make easily, I don't think.
Yeah.
But there's also you kind of get tax help. So every time you declare your taxes, you take off all the kids you have, that kind of thing.
Is that the same in other countries? I think that's definitely the same in Germany.
I don't know if it is in the UK. I'm not really sure. Anyway, there's quite a lot of help, I think, in France. But I think that help is kind of being stripped back and back and back. I know personally, when I was looking for childcare for my kids, I never got a place in a nursery. Like, I never got a
Yeah.
spot in a nursery. It's really, really competitive. Or
Yeah, it's quite tight.
you have to do something where you enroll them and then get rejected and then enroll them again, and it's just
Yeah.
bit of a nightmare.
You do have to get on waiting lists. Although from what I heard is that during the pandemic, people moved out of the city. So like we had our children when we were still living in Lyon Center,
Yeah.
in the city center. Apparently, at least last year, the nurseries where I had my kids, and it was difficult to get in, so I kind of got in with like one day, which means you don't have to go through a specific commission. And then once I had them in one day,
Yeah.
kind of got a second day, and then tried to get them in there more and more, and then eventually went back to work and was just like, you need to take them now full time, and it kind of worked out more or less. And I also had like a childminder, but it kind of worked out. And these same places, the last couple of years, apparently have been looking for kids. So they, there's not enough families and kids being born.
Wow.
Apparently, even in the city centers now, that these places are full, and they need to have a proportion of people who pay full price and a proportion who like subsidized. They can't only have subsidized families, because otherwise, the finances don't work out. So it didn't, apparently. This is what like friends told me. They were saying like, the nurseries are looking for kids to get in. So yeah,
Crazy.
I think the pandemic has changed a bit of that, which again proves our point. The structure is there in France to go back to work if you want to. Go back full time. You will find someone to look after your child. You'll be able to pay for it. Even, there might not be like loads of your salary left at the end of the month. It depends. But you do have that choice in a way. Whereas let's just say in Germany, for example, you kind of can't, even if you wanted to go back really quickly. Like I can tell from my sister, for example, she went back after 8 months or something, and that was really, like I think quite shocking for a lot of people. I think we're 7 or 8 months she went back, and her child, went into childcare, which was only at, I guess, like 50% or even less.
Yeah.
But it was quite shocking to people that she would go back before her child hits like the 1 year age.
I think the 1 year age is a bit of a marker in the UK too. Like you kind of know that when when someone gets pregnant at work, you're not going to see them for a year, basically after the birth. So I think in France, it's almost too accepted to go back to work really quickly, because obviously it should be a choice. But I can think of kind of 3 people who've gone back to work pretty quickly. So between like 2.5 months and 5 months after their child was born, and just burned out or had to be signed off for medical reasons from work. And that's not what new motherhood is about, right? And it's not helpful for anybody. And I took off when my last child was born a year, and that left people's heads spinning. They couldn't believe it. When I got back to work, people said, "Wow, you've been off for so long." I actually kind of had to take it on the chin and say, no, I assumed the choice that I'd made, but it was clearly not normal to take that
Mm.
long off. And I think we have a little experience of it, and obviously not everyone has the choice. But I do think a year, if you want to, is a good amount of time to take off with a kid. I don't know what you think.
No, yeah, I don't think, no, I have been home for a year with my third child. I haven't with the first and the second, and to be honest, I guess like 9 months or a year or something. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it is really nice looking back now. But back then, I think, especially for my first child, I did feel like, oh, I really need to get back to work.
Yeah.
There was like an opportunity and I was like offered a new position. And it just all sounded like, oh, I either go back now or I wait and then, I'll be sorry. Yeah. Either way, I think then I was happy because like the choices I made were okay for the time. But today, looking back, and this is like as a mom of three, I do think it doesn't make a big difference if you're off work for 6 months or for a year. And yeah, I mean that year is quite precious with your child. So that is cool. I was gonna say with the in the whole discussion that is in French society at the moment,
Mm.
what sparked huge debate is that the government plans to send letters to
Right.
to everyone turning 29. Is it this year or like that kind of is a project sending a letter about fertility or
Yeah.
trying to make people have babies? And so this has been like a huge debate and people's, being like, I mean, there's been a lot of fun being made about it. For example, like, Macron is going to tell us how the birds and the bees work and or how'd you call it? Yeah.
Childless Macron. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Childless Macron is going to tell us how to have more children. Um, and there was one video that went viral on Instagram, I think, and this was a mother saying, Macron, I don't need your letter to ask me to have more children. I need for this government to make it easier having small children and being at work or having small
Yeah.
children and not having to go back to work just after, because this was a woman who like showed that, she was, I think in the beginning of the video, she cries and she really like
Oh
looks
no.
so desperate. And she's saying, my child is, I don't know how old, like 4 months old. I have to go back full time to my job because XY reasons, maybe money, I don't remember. Um, and I'm looking for someone else to look after my child full time so that I can go back to work full time. Don't sleep in the nights because this is a 4-month-old baby. No baby sleeps. Rarely a baby of
Yeah.
4 months old will
Yeah.
sleep. They get sick all the time. And then you're supposed to just be able to do your job at work, which is just completely mental when you've been sleep deprived for months and months and months. And so she really depicts this really well, just saying, like, I don't need a letter asking me to have more children. If you put in place policies that made it easier for families, people would automatically have more children. And yeah, I mean, obviously, we know the reason this video went viral because I think a lot of people can just very much feel her.
So
Um,
true. Yeah. The
and
squeeze is real.
yeah, and into all of this has been this debate. I don't know if you followed this a couple of weeks ago about the French train company putting in extra, you know, parts of the trains on specific lines where kids under 12 aren't allowed. And so this sparked like this huge debate about, on one side, the French society's banning children and trying to have this part of society that is childless and where, you can't just include everyone. And on the other hand, you want everyone to have more children. That doesn't make sense. And it is something like a lot of people have been asking me about how this is in Germany or other cultures that I know to see like is do we have a society where people with kids live in this one part of society and people without kids in this other part, or
Yeah.
can you very much be in both when you're a parent? I don't actually have a good answer to that, but I've always felt like France was quite cool in having kids in all public spaces.
It's cool with having kids in public spaces so long as they like act like little adults. It's kind of I think, you know, kids come to dinner with their parents, but they're expected to not be heard, you know, or they can get involved in adult conversations, but they're not meant to act like kids. They're meant to sit there and be good. I experienced this in Lyon when there was just no changing tables anywhere to change kids. You know, you can walk around all the coffee shops you want, all the restaurants you want. There's nowhere to change your kid in Lyon, anywhere. Or it's very rare. Whereas in the UK, everywhere has a changing table. And I think that's quite quite a metaphor for how French society sees kids. You know, they just have to kind of get on board with the parents' lifestyle.
But then again, I think that is part of the reason why I liked having kids in France, because it doesn't mean that me as a person, I become someone completely different.
Yeah.
Do you remember like when I had my child? In my first child, in our friend group, like we would still just go out to restaurants and we just like go out having drinks, and we just had like a pram in some corner and she was just sleeping there. We went to, I mean, I think we went like almost weekly to restaurants and she was just sleeping in the pram. And it never really was a problem. Like there was also always, we always found some space to put her. I mean, it wasn't obviously, as you say, I wouldn't have gotten her out and, she wouldn't have run around us maybe all evening or something like that, but she was small, she was just gonna sleep. But it did feel like I'm not excluded
Mm.
because I have a child. I can come here. But I get what you mean. I can't, yeah, the child can't, it doesn't have its own space. It needs to be in the adult space.
Yeah, I think so. This is like I read a super interesting thing, and I think I sent it to you. It's this kind of brand strategist, so it's a bit of a different way of kind of looking at the idea of having kids. He's called Eugene Healy, and he wrote an article which was titled "Why is having a baby a bigger flex than a Birkin now?" When I saw that, I was like, "Is it? Okay," because I don't have a Birkin, but I got a few babies. But it's so interesting because he was saying that now it's so difficult to have a child and it to be kind of like in that aspirational way, you know, like you did maybe when you had your first child because you just slotted into your life, that it's the new status symbol. And he kind of cited, you know, ASAP Rocky, Rihanna's husband. He did this shoot with Bottega, and his kid was kind of just on the outside of the shoot, you know, like almost like an accessory. And he was talking about arty pop carriers, you know, the baby carriers that they're like insanely expensive and cheap. And it's kind of making having a kid like aspirational.
Mm,
Yeah.
expensive gear, and then a kid has only like most expensive clothes and
Exactly, yeah. I mean, there's a bit of that in France. I was at the park in the centre of Lyon today, and it's really close to the 6th arrondissement, which is, you know, kind of the chicy, bougie, really rich area. And there were a lot of kids wearing, you know, shirts and tights, and you know, that it was quite interesting to watch. My kids were covered in ice cream, sand.
it's true. I saw some kids go through the city center this week when I was in Lyon, and there was like this whole group, the class walking through, and they all just looked like tiny adults, like really, really well dressed, like, cooler than I was.
Love it. It's such good people watching, honestly, in that park. But I mean, so this guy was saying basically parenthood has been kind of reframed as a cultural performance, whereas before it was kind of a consequence of a heterosexual relationship because there was no birth control. Now it's kind of, oh, I'm ready. I've got this maturing of taste. I'm ready to become a parent, which I suppose does kind of speak to what's happening in France. And I think across Europe, it's like people are waiting to have kids and they just want to have less kids 'cause it's hard and doing all the stuff.
Because you're well informed about what it means and to have a child and,
Yeah.
that you can pretend all you want that you can just get a van and tour around the world with your kids like that is uh, only a few people do it. That's probably because it is still quite hard. You do have to
Yeah.
fight against a whole system that makes it more difficult to be doing that. And also, kids kind of like consistency. So, traveling all around, I'm sure they learn loads of things, but it also makes it difficult on a different level.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this letter being sent to 29-year-olds, which obviously, I mean, if one single person decides to have a child because of that letter, I mean, I want to meet that person. Really, please come forward. If
Yeah.
anyone listening thinks that they
Yeah.
need a letter for this, like I want to know what needs to be in that letter to make people have children, because I really do think it's not even something that this commission now is going to be able to. They're not going to find one simple answer, is what I want to say. I really think if now they get what they're planning on, one of the things they're planning on is getting child benefits, like money that you get every single month from the state to help you, just financially help you when you have kids, which today depends on how much you earn in France.
Yeah.
They want to make it independent of how much you earn. So you would get, and this is already in Germany, this is very much the case. I think you get almost 300 euros per child per month.
Nice.
Millionaire or not, you just get that money, which I always thought doesn't make sense.
Doesn't really
Does
make sense,
someone
no?
who's like already rich really need, you have two kids, do you really need 600 euros every month? I mean, that's not going to make anyone have kids. I just don't think that is going to change anything. And I think that what has changed is, as you just said, is just society. Like, people know how many choices they have. They know what they want in their lives. They know they're I think you're very much more aware of mental health and what being responsible for another human being means for your mental health. And to be clear, I mean, we both know having kids means you have to question yourself so much. Not that much in the beginning, but the older they get and the more you have to um, educate them, the more you put into question the way you've been educated and what kind of parent you want to be and what kind of human you want your children later on to be and
Yeah.
what your role will be in it. And I think that is so heavy. That is such a huge burden. I get that you don't want that for 3 or 4 or 5 children.
Yeah, and a job, and a full-time job, both of you. And it's kind of sweet Macron sending that to 29-year-olds, but I imagine most of their parents are still working too because he raised the retirement age. So, send the letter out, but it's in different policies, isn't it? And it's also in what, this brand strategist was saying, make having loads of kids cool, then people will want to do it, or, make it appealing in some way to everybody, not just giving rich people 300 euros a month. He should flip that on his head and make it really appealing. Um, if you're on the SMIC, or not even appealing, that's not what I mean. Make it possible if you're on the SMIC to stay off for a year with your kids. That's where you should start. If you want to. I mean, I suppose you can't send kids to school any earlier because they already go at 2.5 in a lot of places.
Yeah, that is true, which is, yeah,
Good.
just another part of that system that is put in place so that initially women and now women and men can go back to work earlier. School is obligatory in France from age 3.
Yeah.
The
Or
year that the child
even
turns
earlier,
3,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
sometimes in September that child won't be 3 yet and
Yeah.
still go to school.
I think, honestly, one thing we haven't touched on is kind of like the Nordic countries where there's separated parental leave. but, there's a year for the mom, a year for the dad, and it can't be interchangeable. So, that's somewhere they could start rather than sending a letter out to everyone. If you know as a dad that you're gonna get a year off with your kid, probably gonna be a bit more appealing than well,
Yeah,
to
I'm sure
a
it
lot of
is.
dads.
It is a little bit of that in Germany. It's not quite that, but I think in Germany, if like the second parent takes, I'm gonna say, I don't know, I don't remember, maybe at least a month, 2 or 3 months, then the first parent gets more even. So it kinda is dependent on the second parent. So for, like, parents to, um, be yeah, both be present and men be more present, especially in that first year after birth, which, there's a lot of studies saying how beneficial it is for,
Yeah,
equality between men and women.
for sure. So I guess basically France kinda got away with it up until now with the fact that people are having kids later, um, people maybe want less kids. They kinda their policies managed to kinda hold it at bay. And then there's been chipping away at the policies, and I suppose the desire to have kids later, have less kids, has just kinda overridden that now. That's the tipping point.
It is, and I think you and I, we just agreed that France is not gonna solve this problem in sending out letters, and it's a development that started years and years ago. It's our generation just being more informed about what it means being parents, and so it's going to be hard to turn this around. As you said, they might need to get a lot of marketing help for people to be
Yeah.
thinking that having several children, having 3 children per family is something that, um, if not easy, at least is for some reason aspirational or, something people can still imagine. I don't think it's gonna be easy to turn that one around.
Nope. Especially for, like, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, who are so much more aware, more in touch with wanting to be present in all of their experiences. They just know they've got other choices, don't they? Hmm. Well. Well, much to mull over. I don't know what I would have done if I'd received a letter at 29.
Maybe they'll just, like, suddenly decide to send out letters to, I don't know, 35-year-olds just being like, "Hey, it's not too late to have another one."
I mean, from a marketing perspective, over 35's probably a little bit more engaged and receptive to the idea because they know how biology works than a 29-year-old maybe. That's
Yeah,
maybe
and to
where
be
he should be
honest,
setting his sights.
maybe seriously, I think we have something here, because I think you are the perfect person to write a letter to be a bit like, "We would give you this if you had another child."
I am this close, Macron. Honestly,
Yeah,
this
just maybe
close.
it's wrong. Yeah.
Send me the letter and I'll
Give me
do it.
some money. Maybe just a little bit of money to just, like, make the choice, to
Not money.
make it a little bit easier.
Tell me I can go out once a week for drinks with my partner. That's what
Yeah,
you need to
that
tell me.
that
Don't
is
give
what
me
we
any
said. That
money.
is yes, that is what we said in our WhatsApp about this, right? We were saying, like, we don't need more money. We need w monthly help for babysitters, weekly even. We need, weekends away for parents as a couple, but also for moms. We need, like, mom
Yeah.
retreats.
Yeah.
2 mom retreats, at least 2 mom retreats a year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we
Um,
need a gym membership with childcare so that you can drop off your child and go work out. For moms and dads, obviously, everyone needs to work out. That needs to be able. You need to be able to be doing that. What other ideas did we have for Macron?
Workplaces with childcare, so I can go back to work, continue breastfeeding, and just go and cuddle my baby a little bit sometimes
Yes,
during the day.
makes it much easier to go back. 100%.
Yeah. Also, kind of more community groups, so I can go and meet a group of mums. That doesn't really exist, so you're not on maternity leave feeling a bit lonely. So you can go and
Yeah.
meet like-minded people, meet
Mhm.
people just for
Yeah.
coffee, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If he invested in all of that, I still probably wouldn't do it, but maybe some might. Some might. My problem is I have some very close friends who have 3 children, and I have seen what that is about. So they don't want me to testify on those letters, or you. Yeah. And I think, I mean, we should have said this at the start of the episode, but obviously this is all, for some people it's not possible, you know, or some people would really like to,
Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we are obviously talking from a place of, you know, 2 women having had that luck of being able to have the children we wanted to. So, yeah, of course, big thought for those who can't. We don't want to, step on anyone's toes.
No, and we see you. We, we know what it's about as well, through our experiences too. So, Macron's got a big job on his hands.
Yeah, he better call us, man.
We've got some ideas.
Really good ideas.
Yeah. He can start by paying for my drinks every Wednesday night. That's where he can start.
Yes, very high on that list of things to do.
Definitely.
Maybe we should send a letter to Macron.
Maybe we should. All right, let's get to it.
Yeah, let's.
On that note, I feel like we've exhausted this topic a bit, but we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yes.
With something else for you.
She'll be back. She'll be back in 2 weeks.
She'll be back. Speak to you soon. Thanks for joining, listeners. Bye.